Hey everybody, happy Friday. I'm Nick Slavik. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration Company. I'm also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live. It's a weekly live Facebook show where I use my over 2 decades of experience as a painter, a restorationist, wallpaper hanger, colorist, craftsman, and kind of general lover of homes to answer any of your questions live here. Now this show is a forum for homeowners and pros alike. Homeowners, what have you always wanted to ask a professional painter? And pros, let's talk business. If you want to talk entrepreneurship, craft, coding science, apprenticeship, things like that, it's all here for you. So I got a whole grab bag full of questions today. I got some cool stuff to show you guys, not really gear centric today, but I have some really cool projects here. I'm going to actually show you how I do a lot of my fine finishing. Today I'm set up outside so we can get a little light. It's a little bit not camera worthy in the shop right now, so normally I don't do my fine finishing outside, but I thought I'd set up a mobile rig for you guys today to kind of go through that. A couple things I want to go through first. Huge announcement here. I will be at the 3M headquarters this next Friday for Ask a Painter Live. I've been getting a lot of questions about tape, specific uses for them. A couple from the PDCA National, the Painting and Decorating Contractors of America, who I partner with to bring me some of the professional questions here. Dustin Zapancic from Vancouver, a contractor friend of mine, he had also sent in a question regarding tape. I figured next week while I'm at 3M, it would be the perfect place to just give a broad overview of what's available to us, what are my personal favorites, little tricks that I've found, things like that. So tape questions, tape uses, tape, anything tape related, get all those questions to me and we'll take care of that next week. So Juliano, thank you for coming aboard there, buddy. I appreciate it, and thanks for all the support you guys down in Brazil have been giving me and worldwide. So thanks for watching there. Also, these cabinet doors are very special to me. They are part of the hashtag Cottage Cabin project. If you guys have been following along, it's a project that I started this last winter. An artist is building his wife a cabin in northern Minnesota in the wilderness as sort of a wilderness retreat. And we are up there. We've done ceilings, we've done walls, we've done all the woodwork. We were one of the first projects in the country to use Sherwin-Williams emerald urethane enamel, and we did it on the entire house. I partnered with Sherwin-Williams on this house to do inside, to do outside, all the finishes around there like that. So now I have a shop plumb full of cabinets for this cottage cabin, hashtag Cottage Cabin project. I'm putting the last coat of oil varnish on these guys today. These cabinets, if you can see them, they are a special kind of oak, not only in the way they are cut, but where they came from. The homeowner cuts down his own trees, mills the lumber, and cuts them in a special way called quarter sawing. And this is white oak, and when you quarter saw white oak, you get these what's called medullary flex. So you can see this sort of tiger striping right through the middle here. It's a very sort of, I don't want to call it wasteful way of cutting wood, but it's a way of cutting wood where you don't get the biggest yield, but you get the highest quality wood. All those craftsmen, arts and crafts, antiques, Gustav Stickley furniture, things like that, all quarter sawn white oak, and this stuff came from the hand of the guy who built the cabin himself. So extra care with these. We got a whole shop full of them there. At the end of this show, I will show you 2 ways of putting on oil varnish. We have my airless rig, and then we have my HVLP. Also, another batch of cabinets in there I am hand finishing for him, depending on the types of wood and his expectations for them. So let's see what else we got here. Oh yes, coming up in the next couple weeks, like I said, next week I will be at the 3M headquarters talking with some super nerdy paint scientists, coating scientists, adhesive scientists, my favorite thing to do, and we will bring you some stuff about 3M and their products and more broadly sort of tape science. And after that, I am preparing for the 2nd annual cabinet extravaganza. A year ago, as we're heading into winter, one of my most popular projects is enameling trim in a house and enameling woodwork and cabinets inside houses that are lived in with the highest quality finishes in mind, all while letting the homeowners live there, working around schedules, children, pets, things like that. So a couple weeks from now, I will be preparing another treatise on that. And for this one, I'm going to do something special. I will give a 4-minute sort of here's how you do it at the start of the show for people who just want to breeze through it, and then we will break it all down, and probably over the course of an hour, hour and a half, I will basically lay out everything you've ever wanted to know about painting your cabinets and your trim inside your house. So any questions you guys have about that, this is one of the most, I guess, topics that I get the most feedback from when I do this. And in the month of October, I'm actually traveling to Illinois for the PDCA Craftsmanship Forum, where I'll be presenting a master's class on this subject to other professionals in the United States and Canada and Mexico. So that's going to be very exciting. That's coming up too. So 3M Factory next week, cabinet extravaganza, the big blowout show on cabinets, and trim enameling after that. Now let's get to some of these questions here. The PDCA Contractor Question of the Week, brought to you by your Painting and Decorating Contractors of America. Chris Lavanel, Crispin's Customs Coatings in Illinois. How do you wash fir and cedar porch tongue and groove ceilings? I can't get the water from staining the wood, and the water spots are tough to sand out. So this is a very common problem, at least here in the north. Even houses that are vinyl sided, when people put a deck or a porch onto it, a lot of times they'll do cedar tongue and groove. Oh, and before I go any farther, I should say thank you everybody for watching so far. If you have any questions, you're not going to be interrupting me, just type them in down below. At the end of the show, not only will I spray some oil varnish for you, but I will go through some of those questions for you as well. So we'll get to that. Up here in the north, people do a lot of cedar, a lot of knotty pine, things like that. And not only do we do our decks in there, we also do our porch ceilings, sometimes accent walls in these porches. And the biggest problem is when you go in there to, there's a standard pressure washing sort of acumen. You strip off all the old stuff, you brighten it, you sand it, and you stain it again. When you apply water to a ceiling, unlike the floors where they're very porous, and the water either soaks in or evaporates. On a ceiling, these things have usually never seen water, never seen daylight, so they still have a lot of mill glaze on them. When you spray them with water, the water drops tend to stay there a long time, and when the water drops do, they actually leach tannins. That's that orange oily substance in cedar and pine and things like that, and oaks and stuff too, not as much. And then you get the orange rings, and they're very hard to get out, and it actually leaves leopard prints, leopard spots all over your thing there. So for the longest time, I have been using an actual janitor's floor squeegee, one of those rubber ones, and we squeegee off the water, then we get up there with towels. One of my crew chiefs, one of my senior apprentices, was without his handy squeegee, but he had a gas leaf blower. And this last week, we have, under the guise of what I always tell my apprentices is you must constantly improve. It has to be a way of life. You must always move forward, slow, fast, whatever, you must move forward. A light bulb went off in his head. He saw the gas leaf blower, went up there, he blew it all off one side there. There was no wiping. It took about a third of the time, and it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. He blew all the water spots off there. Absolutely love it. Continued washing and went on. So now, in the guise of constant improvement, we now have adopted that as our way of doing that. If you still have any residual moisture on it though, if the wood is porous, you may just blow around water droplets. You still may have to get up there with a terry cloth towel. I like the used ones, they seem to absorb more. You may have to get up there and get the residual stuff, because even if there's micro dots, they're going to leach it through, and they're going to have spots on there. It's going to be hard to go off. But gas leaf blower, I also have electric leaf blower in my trucks too for decks and things, and so that's been something very good. So try that out, it's awesome. If you don't have the leaf blower, just get up there with the terry towel cloths and wipe it all off. All right, next one here. Jason Paris, a contractor friend of mine from about an hour north of me, runs a really exciting kind of outfit. So if you guys are on Facebook or Instagram, look up Paris Painting. It's kind of fun to watch his projects. He was asking about exterior filler for woodpecker holes, and this is something where I have done just about everything in the past because, again, in the north we use a lot of cedar-sided homes and things like that, and especially around lakes. For whatever reason, lakes attract a lot of spiders, a lot of spider webs, and woodpeckers. And the woodpeckers, for whatever reason, they must smell some sort of insect or grub, or think they smell it in this wood. They'll peck a series of holes, almost like a machine gun strafe this house. And there'll be some big, some small, whatever. Sometimes they go right on through into the insulation. Then they're either they or other birds make nests, things like that. So actually, I do something a little bit against the grain. People kind of poo-poo flexible sealants or just painter's caulk, but I've tried all sorts of fillers. And the problem with real fillers over time is that they're rigid, and wood expands and contracts, especially cedar. Cedar is a very soft wood. And when it moves back and forth, when it swells between, you know, we get -40 in the winter and we get 100 degrees in the summer, that wood is moving all over the place. And eventually that little plug, that little hockey puck you put in there of filler, just loosens up, gets brittle, and falls out. Or it's just loose in there, doesn't do anything. So what I've done in the past is I can usually get by, I just simulated a woodpecker hole here. They don't normally make square holes, but I did not have a piece of cedar with a knot hole in it. So what I do is a little bit against the grain. People poo-poo it. I use flexible sealant. I do at least one application, and then it usually kind of dries and shrinks, and then I sometimes go back and do a second one on the real big holes. Now, 10 years later, I've gone back to some of my projects, and these things are still in place. They are hard enough where a woodpecker can't get back through it, but they're flexible enough where the wood moves, it'll move with it. Now, I'm going to just lay it out here for you real quick here. I got some black sealant this time, just to show you guys the difference here. What I do is fill it up, not to go too much over, and again, I'm using black just to show you guys so you can see this here. What I'll do is I will find the appropriate sealant that will match the house, and up here we do a lot of natural tones and things like that. There's usually a deep redwood. There's usually 2 or 3 different forms of cedar depending on the manufacturer. You can always find one that's close enough where they won't see it. If the homeowner, and in the past, pros and homeowners have always said, well, what if you see the big thing up there? Well, you know, knot holes in cedar or pine are black, and I don't use black. I use something the wood tone, so it's going to hide a heck of a lot better than these black knot holes. So if you have this this here, what I do is you basically use your finger. I don't use a putty knife because I don't want to scrape it over the wood grain. My goal is to just leave it inside this hole here. If you start spreading it around like this, you make a big mess, and it's unsightly. So what I do is you drag it towards each edge like that, wiping a little bit. And you just want it to make contact. All right, so, and you can see I just mound it up just a little bit like that. And the benefit of that is, you know, when it dries and shrinks, it'll get almost level like that. If you kind of spoon it in there and wipe it around in there like that, it's going to shrink even more. This stuff will always sort of suck back in once the moisture leaves it. So that's sort of the way I do it. If you leave it mounded up a little more, it'll eventually go down like this. Usually takes about a day or two to dry in the part of summer. People poo-poo this because they think it's too easy. You must have this magic trick to do this magic filler that always is stainable, always matches the wood, will never fall out. Honestly, I've tried a lot of stuff over the years, and 10 years later, these things will be here. The woodpeckers will go around it. They will find wood elsewhere, but they will not do this, and this will not fall out of the house. So that's what I do for that sort of stuff there. Let's go back to the... we got another question. Contractor asked to remain nameless, but sent me a private message just last week. They're wondering when I decide to brush and when I decide to spray. It seems like him and a bunch of other contractors out there were a little bit surprised to see me actually spraying a house or two this summer. And it's spraying... Painting is not politics to me. It's not the right or the left. It's not brushes versus spraying. They're all tools for me. Right now, we have 2 houses being hand finished. We have a gas station that will end up being sprayed with an industrial finish. We have fine finishing going on here. I am not so dogmatic that I will say everything must be brushed. It has to be done this way, because Lord knows I do a lot of my fine finishing, you know, by hand and brush, but when we do the enamels, it's all by spray nowadays here. So when I decide, the big factor is if it's I'll lay this out for you here. My interior fine finishing is sprayed most of the time, not only because of schedule, but because it lays out a finish that people have come to expect, a flawless sort of, you know, no brush stroke finish. That's just the way it is. Industrial steel buildings, commercial steel buildings, I'll do that because there's no pores in the metal, and there's no need for a lot of mechanical pushing and adhesion like that. The chemical will, if you've prepped it right, the chemical will adhere to it just fine. Other than that, you know, there's some oil varnishes, things like that. I'll spray, you know, the odd sealing here or there, but honestly, most of the time it's easier and quicker to just hand finish them. So my rule of thumb is if a substrate does not have open pores, does not need that mechanical adhesion advantage to it, I'll definitely spray it. And we regularly do that stuff, but only on the projects that ask for it. So, you know, I have a steel-sided house coming up this year as well. That thing will be sprayed. We have that gas station that we'll be doing. That'll be sprayed. And so basically it's just the pores. You know, when you need to fill those pores, if we have a restoration, there's actually a restoration on a beautiful farmhouse, a 4-square right down the road from me here, a neighbor. And we're gonna hand brush that one, and we may end up doing a little bit of spray training with the crew later on, but we'll be hand scraping, sanding, hand applying all the primer to fill the pores, and we may, like I said, we may do some spray training with the rest of the crew. So, and also, if you guys have any questions, just type them down there below for me. And Joe Shriver, Shriver Fine Finishings from Pennsylvania. He had a question about what to expect when you're doing interior work for a homeowner. Do you expect them to move furniture? You know, do you make sure they lay out a bathroom plan for you and the rest of the people, things like that? I thought I would lay this out for you. I'm going to lay this out. I'm going to turn these guys on, and then I'll spray this for you at the end here, right before we leave. So basically, Mr. Shriver, I will lay out what I do with my homeowners. I try to make it as easy as possible for them, especially in the summer when I do a rain day schedule. I have a whole bunch of people lined up. I've done color consultations. They've accepted all my bids. Everything except the actual date that we're going to do it is known to them. So I have them all kind of in the hopper, on deck, ready to go. And when a rain day comes up, usually 24 hours notice or less, I call them and I basically say, hey, you know, you're first on the list. Do you want this rain day? If they say yes, then I say, okay, here we are, 8 o'clock. I'll be at your house. We'll do it. And I would have already walked them through my process. So all they're doing is waiting to hear a date from me. The only thing I ask from my homeowners, I give everybody I work for a free color consultation. So we have colors there. I expect my homeowners to do samples if they want to guarantee the color. I can get them 90% of the way there, but my color consultation, because it's free, is not, here are 2 colors, I slide them across the table, and you will use these, they will always be good. I'm not doing that. If I did that, I would definitely charge money for it, because I'm taking on a lot of the liability then for the colors. You know, like normal designers, interior designers, and interior architects and things like that. So I basically walk them through anything that I've done before, tell them what I expect out of a lot of colors, and then it's up to them. If they don't want to do samples, it's written up in my estimates, it's sort of on you. If the only foolproof way to make sure these colors are going to be what you thought is go through my color consultation, and then you do your samples. So I expect them to do that. My system for knowing what to patch in the house is I take care of all the furniture, which is another huge thing. I ask the homeowners to basically just audit their walls, which is if I see a nail in the wall, I'm leaving it. If I see a hole in the wall, I'm patching it. That way, it's an easy system for my apprentices. When we show up at a house, everybody knows if they see a big nail sticking out of the wall, we're going right around it. We're not taking it out. We're not doing anything else. The homeowner wants something back there. If they see a hole in the wall, we patch it. And there are very, very complicated ways of doing this. Homeowners will walk around and either write on the wall, put sticky notes, save this one, not this one. Too much. My system is foolproof. When the homeowners agree to follow it, it works really well. So that's basically all I ask of them. I move furniture. I think it's part of the deal, and a lot of the times it would be nice to say, hey, you need to have this room completely ready for me, but they don't move the furniture where I want it anyway, so I just move it with the apprentices. Takes 6 minutes a room to move the furniture, not a big deal. When we're done with the project, we will once in a while hang for an elderly couple, for a couple that doesn't have access to a higher part of their walls, we'll rehang something like that, with the caveat being if we put this on now and you don't touch it for 10 years, it's probably going to stick to the wall. Most people don't care. After we're done, we vacuum up behind all the furniture, which is something the homeowners don't normally have the luxury of doing because it's a big pain in the rear end. We will then move all the furniture back. We will vacuum where the furniture was or sweep where the furniture was. We'll mop down or dust all the hard surfaces from the little bit of sanding dust that we had. We'll rearrange the furniture. If the homeowner's home, we'll ask them, can we move anything for you? Can we adjust anything? What needs to go where to make sure we did everything? And then we're basically out. And I try to leave their home cleaner than we found it. The only thing that is required of the homeowner after I leave is basically to just hang whatever you want on the walls again. So, Mr. Shriver, hopefully that helps you there. I'm going to put on some safety gear here. I'm going to switch on my HVLP, and what I'll do for you guys is I will do HVLP on one of these cabinet doors, and I will do airless. I've actually converted a lot of my oil varnishes, and this is both oil varnish, by the way. I've converted a lot of my oil varnishes to airless applications for production, and now with a whole bunch of new fine finishing tips, you know, fine finish, low pressure, sort of things like that, you can really tune these airless rigs up where you get good atomization, not a lot of overspray, things like that. So again, normally inside my shop right here, I do all my fine finishing. I set up this little mobile rig for you guys today so you can see it outside. So let's not talk about bugs. Let's not talk about insects getting stuck in it. I'm going to take these guys right into the shop after this. I don't normally do my fine finishing outside. So to recap here before I go, 3M headquarters next week. It's going to be awesome. I want all your questions for that. I may even have a chance to get a 3M person on this show, and then at that point we can ask them any questions we've always wanted to know about tape and all their sundries and things like that. We're having, after that, in the next week or two after the 3M visit, next Friday, is going to be the big cabinet and woodwork show where we talk about enameling cabinets and woodwork inside houses. So I'm hoping a lot of pros will chime in with their little tips, their coating recommendations, things like that. So pardon me, 22 seconds, and I will safety up and go spray some cabinet doors for you. All right, folks, well, happy Friday. I do appreciate everybody watching here. The Brazilian cruise in full effect here today. Terry Taylor from Detroit. Edison from Brazil. Oh, Juliano, my airless one connected to this is a Titan rig. And my HVLP, let me check which one this one is. This one just happens to be a Titan as well. So both are Titan today. Let's see, we got some parts from another HVLP, a Wagner cap spray that's probably about 25 years old working in there too. But you know, thank you guys so much for watching. I always appreciate all the viewership, and keep sending those questions my way here. That nice oil varnish on there. All right, well, you guys have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.